Yo, you guys, this is Blacklist to the Abyss, and as Wrestling Jesus would say, this is your late, out-of-date Brynhildr review. Alright, my review for Brynhildr Into the Darkness, aka Kiwakuro no Brynhildr, aka Goku Koku no Brynhildr, Episode 3. Alright, and I had a psych paper due that took up a lot of time. I also had a couple group projects to work on, so yeah. School is top priority. So yeah, that's why this review is really late. But yeah, it's up now, so better late than never. I mean, not really, but I'll pretend that that's true. Um, and it was actually a pretty big episode too in terms of what we learned. Um, it started off with Neko. Um, she finally made it to class, but she had all these bandages wrapped around her, and her arm was in a sling. And she was trying to say like, "Oh, it's just a cold," but that obviously makes no freaking sense. So it was clear as something was definitely suspicious there. So the next day, when she doesn't come to school again, Murakami decides to go to her house, her and Kana's house, where they're living in that abandoned town, and check on her. All right, when he does, he finds her laying on the floor, a bloody mess. All right, it was just not. It wasn't pretty. All right. So she has him take her to the kitchen where she gets these pills. All right, and it turns out that these pills are it's their medicine that all the witches have to take every day. All right, they're death suppressants, and if they don't take them every day, then their bodies pretty much get destroyed, and eventually their organs melt and their bodies just melt. All right, and the reason why they were made this way, to the point where they are, or their lives literally depend on drugs. That's like major addiction right there. Like, even if they don't want to take them, it's still technically an addiction. um, but the reason why they were made that way, I would assume, is because the researchers and those dudes that we saw in this episode and the last episode, they didn't want the witches to run away. So if they did run away, they wanted there to be some type of incentive for them to come back, which would just, I mean, they would just kill them anyway. But you get the point, all right? In order to keep them from running away and causing trouble, all right? But yeah. So since they died, they don't have the pills. Those we learned that those pills are the reason why Kuroneko, because we find out in this episode that she is Kuroneko, if it wasn't obvious already. Um, I forgot what I was saying because we started talking about Kuroneko. The pills. So they only have like 5 pills left each, and since they die after like what was it, like 34 hours, like 30 some hours, they end up dying after they if they don't take the pill, and that's why she wasn't sure she'd make it to that school trip that they were going to the ocean, because she didn't have enough pills to last that long. So she was trying to stretch it out as much as possible, but it's just not happening. But she does finally take her pill, and she takes a nap because this is the her injuries get healed like that apparently after she takes the death suppressant. Like, everything just heals up. So that's interesting. They should try and find a cure for cancer and stuff like that. They could do stuff like that. But hey, whatever. Um, yeah. While she's taking a nap, Murakami tries to think of a way to get them more medicine so that they can live. And while he's thinking about that, he just chops wood. Right. And once Neko gets up, she goes outside to talk to him, but they see smoke coming from the house. Well, Murakami sees the smoke coming from the house, and it turns out that before she went out there, she started boiling water, and since she left it alone for too long, without watching it, it started the fire. She started the fire accidentally. Okay, she accidentally sets the house on fire, and the medicine ends up being caught in it and getting destroyed. So now they can't even live for 5 more days. Right, they're done. They're done essentially. And Kana, she took her last pill the day before, so she Neko's gonna live till like the next day, but Kana won't even make it through the night probably. All right, so Neko is kind of she's not doing too well at all. She kind of just breaks down because it's like in her eyes it's all her fault. Um, which kind of tries to reassure and say we were going to die in a few days anyway. I mean, it's not a big deal. It's we're just like losing a couple of days isn't a big deal or anything, but doesn't really do much for Neko. I mean, Murakami has to come in to reassure and say no, we can still get through this. You can still get through this because we can go to the lab and get the medicine. All we need to do is go to Dresden Pharmaceuticals factory in Takayama. All right, and they're like, how do you know that? Where'd you get that from? All right, and it turns out that he memorized the ID code on the medicine, and he actually has a photographic memory. All right. So he remembers the code. He knows where to find the medicine. So him, Neko, and Kana end up going to the observatory, using the computer there in order to look up where it is and how to get there. All right. And after this is when we learn about Kazumi because the factory's got security, obviously, because they've got important stuff there. All right. And it turns out that Kazumi, she's a witch that can just handle electronics and stuff like that, so she can take down the security for them. And she is also the one who was able to get Neko into Murakami's school, even though she's got the intelligence of a middle school, not even a middle schooler actually. She's like elementary schooler level. Yeah, well, she couldn't even do 2 times 2, right? She couldn't like do basic stuff. Yeah, that's like elementary school. If I learned that stuff in literally second grade, that's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. Though to be fair, I didn't get good at it until third grade. But that's not the point. That's not the point. Okay, it's not the point. All right. The point is that Kazumi got her into the school. All right. And one interesting thing about Kazumi is that she doesn't do things for free. She's not a volunteer worker, as she would put it. You have to pay her if you want a job done, and she doesn't take money. She takes the death suppressants. All right. So Murakami ends up putting 2 and 2 together. 2 times 2. All right. He ends up putting 2 and 2 together, and he realizes that Kana and Neko literally gave parts of their lives away in order to save him and what's her face. Well, he wasn't really thinking about her. He was thinking about himself mainly, saying like they gave away part of their life in order to save me. That's big. That's big. But you know, he's able to focus back on the task at hand. Um, Seeing as though they don't have the pills necessary to pay Kazumi, they try to convince her to go with the plan by saying, yeah, well, if this mission succeeds, we'll get a bunch of pills and we'll give you half. And she ends up agreeing. Well, she was the one who said half, but she ends up agreeing to it, and kind of ends up getting this foresight, right? A foresight of Neko getting cut in half at the factory, alright? And after this scene, we switch to the 2 guys at their headquarters, I guess, or something. Turns out that they were actually able to find out that Murakami was searching for the factory and for the ID code for the medicine. All right. However, Murakami's so smart. He was searching through like anonymous overseas proxies and all this like fancy pants stuff in order to avoid getting caught. All right. So that's impressive. Right. The dude's impressive. All right. And they decide, you know what? We don't need to move the pills out. Doesn't really matter. We'll just send Saori to the lab and have her take care of everything. All right. And Kana, because of the way that Neko was killed in the forecast, she is able to deduce that Saori is in fact the one being sent to take care of them. All right. and we learned that Saori is rank double A, which is the second highest rank, triple A being the highest and C being the lowest. Khan ends up saying that of the three of them, her, Neko, and Kazumi, they're she doesn't say that the three of them are B rank. She says that they're like at best B rank, which means that some like one or two of them might even be C rank. So they're really like they're the defective ones. That's what they call themselves. Or at least that's what they were referred to as. They were defective and they were going to be disposed of. That's why they ran away in the first place. All right. And the point of this is to show that they can't beat Saori because they're the defective failures, and she's the super powerful witch who has two different types of magic. One of them is a secret that they didn't tell us in this episode. They'll tell us next week. But the other type is this cool type of ability where she can cut anything within a 6-meter radius. Alright, so that's actually pretty cool. Which is how they were able to figure out, oh, well, she's cut in half, so that it must be Saori that's getting sent there. Alright, so, yeah, that's that. After that, we end up learning about, kind of learning a little bit about harnests. Crunchyroll, instead of calling them harnests, Crunchyroll didn't like have Japanese, have Boston or something, like they called them harnests instead of harnests. Whatever, I thought that was interesting, but whatever. We learn about them. Those are the things on the back of their necks. The one switch hangs them up, which prevents them from using magic for the rest of the day. Another switch ejects them, which is what happened to that one girl last week. Or like your body starts to melt. It's like, yeah, that's not a fun way to go. Alright, and the other button, the one on top, no one knows what that does. At least the witches don't. The girls don't know. Apparently, it's worse than death, but we've got no way of knowing that because no one's actually tried to press it, obviously. Why would you? I mean, why would you risk your life just to figure out what the button does? So, it's a mystery, alright? Like evolution, alright? What that button does, it's a mystery.
Evolution is a mystery.
Let me stop. Let me stop. Oh, but if you got the reference, then you're awesome, alright? But anyway, I don't even remember where I was now. Jesus Christ. It's too late at night. I need to stop doing reviews this late. The quality just drops so low. The button worse than death. Yeah. So, after that they just leave. The forecast doesn't change, but they leave anyway. They go on the train. We see Kazumi's face for the first time. She's one of the girls from the opening. Turns out that she doesn't have any pills left either, so she's bleeding out too. With the one thing was funny when they were actually on the train, and Neko's writing this letter to Murakami, and she's just like bent over in front of him, and like he looks over, and even though there's this girl who he acknowledges as attractive, bending over in front of him, he decides to pay attention to the paper that she's writing on. Like, I thought that was funny, especially since Murakami is the type of character who does in fact get embarrassed very easily, and he blushes very easily. So like I thought that was funny. This girl who he finds attractive is bending over in front of him, and he's paying attention to a piece of paper. I thought that was funny. But yeah, like I said, the paper she was writing on ended up being a letter for him, pretty much telling him that she's going to sacrifice herself so that he can get the medicine. So, yeah, that's exactly what she does. Except Murakami says no. He doesn't actually just go and let her do that. He goes and tries to save her, but it doesn't really do much. Because when Neko goes up against Saori, she gets dominated. She hangs up before she can even really do much damage at all. Alright, so she's got a very small limit to the amount of magic she can use before being forced to hang up. Alright, which would probably tell you why exactly Saori called her the defective witch who can't kill anybody. Because by the time she's actually able to do even a little bit of damage, she's already hung up. Alright, but yeah, Murakami ends up showing up And once he decides to go and help Neko, that's when the forecast changes, and turns out that now both of them are going to die. Yeah, not looking too good. Not looking too good. Um, Perhaps the two most important parts of the episode um, happen after this. Part of Neko's dress gets blown off in classic seinen fashion. Reminds me of the good old days of Sekirei, even though the manga's still ongoing. So I don't know why I'm saying the good old days, but reminds me of Sekirei easily blowing people's clothes off. Um, but yeah, part of her dress gets blown off, and you can actually see the moles that belong to Kuroneko. My the camera's mirroring everything, but you can see the moles that belong to Kuroneko. So we get the confirmation that yes, Neko is in fact Kuroneko, which is no surprise to anybody. Her moles had moved up a little bit because as a girl, that part of your body kind of tends to change when you get older and the skin moves. You know, all right, you know, all right. Yeah, I don't need to go into detail. I don't need to go into details and have this video turn into health class. All right, that's not necessary. Um, the point is that Neko is Kuroneko. All right, and the other thing that we learn here is that whenever she uses her power too much, she ends up losing her memories, which was hinted at a couple different times in the episode when she told Murakami that um, being unable to remember the things you want to is worse than being unable to forget the things you want to. And when Kana said that she loses something important to her whenever she uses her power, so try to make sure she doesn't use her power that much. So those were the two times that they foreshadowed that in this episode. And that explains why it is that Neko does not remember being Kuroneko and she doesn't remember Murakami at all. So yeah. Um, yeah, that's it. The last thing that happens in this episode is Saori activating her power and cutting Neko's head off. You can see her head go flying, the blood was everywhere. All right, and at first Murakami was freaking out because he's like, this is the second time I've lost Kuroneko, right? But then he remembers that Kana mentioned Saori has another power, and he's thinking about what that power is, and he says everything's okay. So, yeah, like I said before, I'm not going to bother coming up with fake theories for what that I know for a fact are wrong, just to try and mislead you and swerve you away from the truth. I'm not going to bother with that. So I'll just let you guys decide what you think this other power is. Um, I can almost guarantee that it's not going to be what you think it is. Um, but oh, maybe you'll think of it. But anyway, I'll give this episode. I'll give it a 9 out of 10 because of just like the reveals that were made. Alright. But yeah, that's that, you guys. I'm getting tired. It's almost 4 o'clock. Jesus Christ. It's almost 4 in the morning. I need to be up in like 5 hours. God. Alright. That's it, you guys. Like I said, this episode gets a 9 out of 10. Rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.